Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the evolution of Sports Talk Television, the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, on this live, great edition on Be Live as we have some special guests in the house tonight. Of course, let's go ahead and get this guy on really quick. But as we always start off the Sports Web, bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense. So who am I going to bring on? Let's bring on Blake and Blake's own Mr. Blake Cabell. Here he comes. Buddy, welcome to the Sports Web. How you doing tonight?
Doing good, Peter. I'm in the football mood right now. How's it going with you?
I see you. We're doing great. We're getting ready to talk about Gerald McCoy being released and, of course, Ndamukong Suh officially being signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's get this guy on tonight, Mr. Tampa Ray Kennedy. If we can get him on. I don't know what's going on here.
Old Town Road.
He's playing... I guess he's playing something here. Hold on a sec.
What is
going on?
In the Sports Web.
All right. Well, I'm trying to work on getting that taken care of at this point. So we'll get him in there. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Sports Web. Like I said, tonight on this edition, there's Ray. There we go. So we got Ray here. Mr. Ray, Tampa Ray Kennedy. Welcome to the Sports Web. How you doing, bud? And we can't hear you. I can't hear you. So I don't know what's going on here. Hold on. Gotta love it. So what we'll be talking about tonight, of course, is what we talked about last night, Gerald McCoy being released. And then, of course, the Bucs signing Ndamukong Suh. You feel strongly about this, Blake Cabell, Blake and Blake Sports. So let's talk about it here for a moment. Of course, there has been no terms that have been announced yet, but it looks like the Bucs are going to sign him to a one-year, $10 million contract. According to various reports, 56 sacks all time, just 1.5 more than McCoy. But to me, what I see with this signing is it's a culture shock at this point, because now you go from a person who was great in the community, but not the strongest. And I think he's declined to a certain degree in Gerald McCoy, to a guy that's looked at in Ndamukong Suh being a dirty player. But to me, more tackles for loss. And at this point, he also fits in this defense better because he's played it. He's wanted to play for Todd Bowles. Your comments?
Ooh, which part you want to talk about? Well, are we talking about just Sue, right? Or are we talking about the McCoy release, or are we collaborating it all into one?
No, well, we're all gonna talk. I mean, whatever you want to say, man. The floor is yours. I don't know what's going on with Ray. Ray, are you there?
Ray, I can't hear you, but I'm gonna keep rolling, Peter.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. I get the $13 million. That's really only the biggest issue here before. And as I said 100 times, you should have went to McCoy months ago and dealt with this issue. I'm not going to beat that again because that's a dead horse. I've said that several times. All right, so we'll move on with that. The pickup Suh, to me, he's been more unproductive than McCoy. If we're just talking about stats purposes, unproductive than McCoy in his older age. I'm talking about 29, 30, and 31 years of age than McCoy has the past 2 seasons. McCoy has clearly been the better defensive tackle than Ndamukong Suh has the past 2 years, and Suh was getting paid just as much as Gerald McCoy has. Now, everybody wants to say this spiel about, I don't know, you want to say nastier player, but if you talk to other players, Gerald McCoy plays just fine. He don't play soft in the games. That's just people's perspective with his personality versus gameplay. I go off of what players say, not what the fans say, because we're not playing. The players are.
Yeah, but here's my thing about this, Blake, and we'll get Ray on here. My thing is the two constants that have been on this defense has been Gerald McCoy and Levante David. And I get it. There have been coaching changes and maybe they're not the greatest coaches, but the two constants are those two players. And yet we're still sitting here talking about an awful defense. I think it comes down to economics. The Bucs didn't want to pay the $13 million.
Right. That's one
They
thing.
looked at a player that was on the decline. Mm-hmm. On top of it, he didn't fit schematically. But I also think at some point, Bruce Arians and Jason Light were looking at this defense as a whole in the past and you look at it, and it has not improved with both of those players on. Now, Levante David is still on this team, but Gerald McCoy was a big part of this, and I think you're trying to go old school here, maybe get a dirty player. Maybe he's a dirty player in some people's eyes, but to me, more tackle loss, more aggressive, and then on top of it, he's making less money than McCoy was. You're going to save $3 million, plus he's actually going to fit in your defense because he's played in this type of defense. He played with the Rams. Plus, you look at his postseason overall, he was probably the best defensive lineman for the Rams, and that's saying a lot with Aaron Donald on that defensive line. So, to me, I think it's a great move by the Bucs. I do think it's a culture shock at this point. I think now you look at the era before, and you can basically close that book. There are no more excuses. Todd Bowles has to get it done with this defense, and I think this defense will get it done, at least being an average defense with Sue and with some of the signings they made in the offseason, including Devin White in the draft. Just my opinion.
No, and you make a lot of valid points, especially the financial standpoint. I'm not going to argue on that. Yes, he should not be getting paid $13 million. I'm not going to argue that. That's dead. I'm just talking about when Sue came in, everybody felt like you're getting like an actual upgrade because you're talking about statistical wise. To me, Sue has had like a plethora of help his entire career, but yet you only lead McCoy by a sack and a half. And I could name names for days that Sue's played with double digits in sacks with defensive end. We'll start in Detroit. This guy, somebody wanted to make a point with me on Facebook, and I had to shut that down, which was Cliff Averill and Ziggy Ansah. Both had double-digit sacks, 12 and above. Ray went out, but I'm sure he'll come back in. 12 sacks and above. And then if you want to go to Miami, people forgot he was there with Cameron Wake in his peak and Olivia Vernon, who both were double-digit sack leading players. And then I don't think I have to name the Rams, but the players that were on that team. But if Sue can play one gap and be that good, I mean, fit his system, that's fine. And I'm cool with you getting rid of McCoy as far as if it doesn't fit your scheme, that makes sense. Okay, we want to get rid of McCoy because he doesn't fit our scheme. That's cool, but nobody really said that at the beginning. That goes back to what I said before. Nobody really communicated between the two sides this whole time. It just made a mess out of something that could have been easily fixed, and the Buccaneers again mess up on veteran players and how they handle the situation. And you anger your own players on this roster. But O.J. Howard's upset, Levante David's upset. The way you handle stuff is poorly.
Well, look, the players, and I get what you're saying. And of course, we're on the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr. Blake Cabell of Blake and Blake Sports, which can be seen here starting at 1 o'clock at Ferg's, 1320 Central Avenue. And then we also have Tampa Ray Kennedy as we're trying to get his audio situation fixed. But, to me, these players have nothing to blame but themselves. Right. If they would be more productive, if the defense turned around. And I kind of laugh at the whole thought of, well, you're missing out on Quan Alexander. You're missing out on Gerald McCoy. How many wins has those players produced for this defense? What have they done for this defense overall to warrant such, an outrage? I get it. McCoy's been here for 9 years, but honestly, really, I get it. He hasn't had the players, but really, who has he made any better on this team? Really, how many players has he made better on this team? How many playoff games has this guy played in? And you know what? Again, I go back to the culture shock thing because these players weren't getting it done. You bring in a coach, you want him to basically change the attitude, and then you're upset about the results. Well, if you continue to do the same thing, which again, going back to the whole deal, the constant thing with the whole situation has been Gerald McCoy, has been Levante David, has been Quan Alexander. I think David has been productive. I think McCoy has declined, but I think this whole attitude adjustment needs to happen with this team, because if you're not going to have an attitude adjustment to this team, don't expect different results. If you're complaining about 2 straight 5-11 teams, don't complain about it if you want to continue to keep the same players doing the same things. To me, that's an attitude adjustment that was needed on this team. I think Sue fits, and even though he brings, that badass mentality, maybe you need a little bit of that badass mentality for this defense going forward. Just saying. Well, because everything else hasn't worked. Yeah, it hasn't worked.
The difference between having a badass attitude and one that's dishonorable. There's nothing wrong being a nasty player, like, coming in there, putting in the hurt on people, you stomping on people and doing all other type of stuff. That's a different kind. That gets you suspended and kicked out of the league. With that being said,
well, he hasn't done that lately. I mean, this is back.
Well, who knows what he'll do in Tampa? We have a history here of things going sour, but we'll see. We got this new coaching regime, and only thing I don't like are when people say this new attitude and culture change. Sue isn't a culture change. That's not really a guy you want to use the word culture change around. The word I would like to use for Sue is a plug and play, a short-term solution. That's more of what he is. He is not here to change any culture. He is here to refill a spot that we just got rid of with less money. Wasn't a lot. It was $3 million. It should be enough to sign your players. I'm fine with that. But to say Sue is your vessel to say that you're changing a culture, I don't want him as that. Definitely not that. And the other part with that, and here's another prime example, and people ain't even thinking about it this way, but here's why I'm here to give it to you. I said, here's another part. If you know you was going to get rid of McCoy this whole time, and I guess you were working out Sue behind the scenes or whatever, I'm sure that was what was going on. The Browns already showed interest. The Eagles showed interest. People showed interest all over in Gerald McCoy. Why wouldn't you trade him for anything instead of nothing? It could have gotten
very simple. The teams didn't want to take on the $13 million.
No,
they probably came to him. Yeah, but they're not interested in taking on the $13 million because if there was a team that was interested, because the reports that were coming out from Mike Lombardi, who was connected all around the NFL, that the Bucs were trying to trade him hard, but the reason why they couldn't get it done is because the $13 million was in the way. So if he wanted to stay in Tampa, he would have taken a pay cut, which he didn't want to, okay? Because he knew the writing was on the wall. He knew this. At the end of the season, the last game of the year, he was saying, I'm not sure if I'm going to be back. He already knew. But to me, people say, well, what does Gerald McCoy have to do with 5'11"? What did he do defensively that says to you that he deserves to make that $13 million? That he's a game changer? When has Gerald McCoy been a game changer? And here's the thing, I say culture shock. It seems to me there's always excuses with him. There's excuses with Levante David saying, I don't know if you remember this a couple of years ago, but the second play of the game, basically the air was out of our defense. That is a mentality that has to be changed. So if you're bringing in a player that is a hard ass, I think the mentality will change. Now, the key is, and you brought this up, only 3.5 sacks last year, 1.5 in his whole career. Can you get Sue to play every play? Can you get him to play like he did in the postseason? I do believe the coaching with Todd Bowles and Bruce Arians will bring that out of him. Just my opinion. I
agree. I think he had a better coaching staff here. So that's why I'm never going to root against Sue and all that and root against the Bucs to be correct. I guess my whole big deal is, and that's me being frustrated with the way we handled Lynch, handled Sapp and Derek Brooks and a lot of those players. We just don't have a history here with handling veterans in the proper way, and it goes back to the T.J. Ward, Deshaun Jackson. It good or bad, there's ways to handle the business.
It's a business, it's a business. Deshaun
it's the
Jackson,
way you handle it. That's my issue. It's the way you handle it.
A lot of players don't handle it the way. If look, I don't think Gerald McCoy handled it the right way either. I don't think him. Going on Instagram and doing what he did, he should have showed up. And I think that frustrated Arians. And when Arians called him out, he had a problem with it. Instead of rising to the challenge, which is what a lot of players should do, what a lot of players will do, this guy said basically, you know what? I'm going to take my ball and go home. So fine, go home. Go pick a team and stop with the whole nonsense. And what you're watching right now is the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr. Blake Cabell. We got Ray Kennedy, but I'm not getting any sound out of him. So we're going to try to put him back in the lobby and then try to get him back in again. But my thing is, stop with all, well, McCoy's going to go to the Patriots and he'll win a championship. Congratulations. Great. He'll win a championship because of Tom Brady and because of total team. But to me, at the end of the day, what?
Well, see, that's how you said it. He'll win a championship because of Tom Brady and the total team. See, why
He's not going to be.
why isn't it the other way now? Now that he's gone, he'll go to a. We're not saying this happened. We're just using it as a metaphor. So now it's the total team why he wins. But when you're with a bad team, you're the reason why the defense is bad. It doesn't work that way. It's one or the other.
To me, he's not a starter. He's going to be a rotation player, so he'll be in a better situation. They'll put him in a better situation. But they're not going to pay him $13 million, and they're most likely not going to put up with his attitude. They're not going to put up with a guy that's going to be it's going to be the way he's been. He's not going to have that attitude where he's running the whole locker room. It's not going to be like that. And I think that's the main problem here that people are not looking at. And they say, well, why are the Bucs struggling? Well, look who are your leaders. Look who have been your leaders. Stop with all the coaching. How many coaches have you changed on this whole team? Defensively, offensively, how many coaches? It's the same results. You're not getting any improvement out of your defense at all. Why? Because you have the same players on the team. So don't you think Bruce Arians and Jason Light were taking a look at this situation and saying, you know what? Maybe the problem is it's not necessarily all the coaches. Maybe it's the players that are on this team, the veterans, like a Gerald McCoy. And who knows? Maybe this team decides to go another direction because Levante David is making a lot of money. That is the business of the NFL. It is not for long. That's how it is. Do the Bucs do it the best way? Maybe not, but that's the NFL. Just like a guy can sign a contract and earn the money, he underperforms to that contract. Well, he expects a contract extension, or he expects to live up to that contract. I mean, it has to be both ways. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with the $13 million. You're right.
Okay.
I'm just talking about the way they do business. And the reason I always bring that up is
that your only problem with them is the way they do business?
The major issue is the way, and the reason I'm saying that is because when everybody gets upset in the offseason, the Bucs won't sign anybody. You let these players go there. Why do you think they go to other teams? Because we don't handle things correctly here. We let things linger. You let locker rooms get poisoned by certain players. You do a lot of things bad. You have coaching changes over and over. Hopefully that changes. Hopefully all this doesn't matter, in the next couple of years. I'm really looking forward to Arians and the coaching staff here to do big things here. But when you do stuff like that, it makes people don't want to come to certain places because of the nonsense you deal with when you go there.
Well, Sue wanted to come here. He obviously signed for possibly 1 year, $10 million. Look, he signed for $10 million. It's $3 million less from McCoy. I'll tell you what, let's read some comments. And then we'll get back to this. But somebody says Sue is a one-gap stomper. Sack predictions for Sue this year. I'm not sure yet. I mean, we can get into that a little bit later. I live just north of Detroit. When Sue played for the Lions, I never missed a game. It amazes me how dominant he can be when he feels like it. Sue was the best when last year of his deal. I'm confident Sue will play hard for Arians, and I think it's a good pickup. I like it. Ben Cornett has joined. Thanks a lot, Ben. Sue had 10 sacks his first season, and then that's the only reason he leads GMAC by 1.5 sacks. 10 sacks. I wonder what Sapp thinks about this. How about durability? Exactly, because Sue has missed 2 games. That's because of the suspension. He's been able to stay healthy. McCoy hasn't been able to stay healthy, and that's another good point. McCoy should have been gone at least 2 seasons ago. He never produced a bust pick from the jump. Nobody's going to help a quarterback off the ground. He will step on them. Wish him the best. McCoy lost captain, and no one ever spoke highly about his leadership. What if, and we'll get back to that in a moment, what if the poison was really Gerald McCoy all alone in that locker room? Because they were seeing that he was a part of the losing culture. Is that possible?
That's something you're going to have to get from a player, and they'll never speak on the truth of that unless you got a player who doesn't care. Maybe that's something you got to get out of Brent Grimes or Miko could get, because they really don't care when they leave teams to speak about things you shouldn't speak of. So I'll reach out to them, see if I can get some information out of that to file it out if that's true. Because he's not playing for anybody.
When you're down by 8 against the Atlanta Falcons, and both Quan Alexander and McCoy are dancing like, it's Saturday Night Fever or something.
That's bad. And
Yeah, that's bad.
I appreciate JPP calling that out. I like listening to him because he calls it as it is. He be like, yeah, there's some people here that are playing because they love the game and want to do it, and there's people that are playing because they're just getting paid. And that's the truth. I mean, we all know that, but I'm just glad to hear a player say that.
And yet JPP is the one that's here. He's got the fractured vertebrae. He actually wants to be here and doesn't want to do the surgery. And the guy that he called out is not here anymore. What does that tell you? Proof's in the pudding. You're on the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Burke, along with Blake Cabell. Earl says Glazers need to, I guess, to sell the team. I think that's what he said. Sue is a stopgap. Well, he's a stopgap, but look, this team is ready to win now. Bruce Arians has told you fans he wants you to jump into the pool. Jump into the pool. He's ready to win now. You know, people would complain, well, you know, they're rebuilding. You know, 2-3 years rebuild, 4 or 5 years rebuild. You want to win now? You want to win? Hello? Do you want to win? Do you want to do something different? Or do you want to continue to do the same thing over and over again? I mean, let's just draft 30,000 draft picks and see if they can develop, or let's go out here and get some guys that are ready to win and go out here and ready to produce. How about that? All right. Bo Allen and Sue, it's a fight just begging to be started. Sue is here to, pair with the comments are coming fast and furious here with Bay. Tired of having a soft team and a soft fan base because it takes 2 teams to trade. Allen is gone. Sue is the new lead vet for the Bucs defense and leader. Does Sue make Vita a nastier defensive tackle? I tell you right now, you break this down in football terms with Sue and Vita Vea. I mean, who are you going to double team? And who, if you don't double team that player, then one of those players is going to get in and win that matchup, right?
Well, first off, Sue is never going to be the veteran leadership to this team. God, no. I'd rather that still be Levante David or Jason Pierre-Paul around here. Sue is here for temporary. He is not here to lead this team anywhere but through this season. With that being said, the double team. See, that's why I was going to do a little tape breakdown of Bowles' defense and all that, but it's fine. So they're all going to be one gap. And if you're asking Sue to do one gap, I think he can handle that for the type of player he is, and it'll be great. Their job is just going to be basically penetration. It's not going to be sack numbers. The people where you're going to get sacks from is going to be the guy on the edge. Let me just go on here and say that now. Don't look for big sack numbers out of these guys with the way they're playing. Their job is to blow up a gap, force people to come down and protect them, and get guys to come off the edge and make plays. Or if some of them guys can slip through, that's fine too. But they're not going to get a whole bunch of sacks on the inside. It's going to come from the edges. And Pierre-Paul, when he gets back, Noah Spence, Carl Nassib, and Will Golston still. I'm still surprised he's still on this roster. For God's sakes, talking about unproductive, he's the most unproductive on this team in the past 3 seasons. But it's gonna come more on the outside and the blitzes, and that's where I liked the rookie Devin White the most. I gave him an A+ at pass rushing, coming off the edge with that kind of speed. Oh, Lord of mercy! You definitely Cam Newton's not going to outrun him. So
let's go ahead and read some more comments here. Some people say they disagree. I know Derek Jones does, but look, everybody has a point to disagree. You have your own, opinion. That's cool. Absolutely. I'm not trashing the guy. I'm just putting it out there with everybody getting upset about it. I don't think he wanted to be here. The Bucs didn't want him there for the $13 million. He compounded things by making it worse with the Instagram thing. And then on top of it, people are trying to say, well, you're missing out on this guy. And I'm trying to look at it because I've watched many Bucs games and I'm trying to figure out, what are you missing out on? When has this defense been a top 10? When has this defense been even a top 15? You're talking about a guy, well, you're 6-time Pro Bowler. Great. When has he made anybody better on this team? And then you wonder why this team is not good, because the attitude of this team hasn't changed. You keep the same players in place and you expect different results. You know what that's called? Insanity. Just my opinion.
Isn't that what Albert Einstein said? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Right.
But that's just really what I'm bitter about the whole McCoy thing. It's just how you handle it, and I just think they handled it pretty poor. Okay. And the other part, you tried to say overall that Sue's career was better than McCoy's. In reality, if you look at it in hindsight, it really wasn't. Sue should have way more sacks than Gerald McCoy because, like I said, his entire career, he's had pass rushers to both sides on all the teams he's played on. McCoy hasn't had any. Closest was Michael Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. No, now Jason Pierre-Paul.
I guess it's a point that's been made, but yet, he has JPP. He had 6.5 sacks, not able to stay healthy. What's his durability issue? He's not able to stay healthy. Only 2 out of his 9 years.
Well, you can't say healthy 2 out of 9. You don't get 54.5 sacks. Staying healthy 2 out of 9 years. Come on now, you're smarter than that.
No, he's only been healthy. He's only played. He at 2 out of his 9 years. He's played a full season.
Oh, you mean like that? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's that. I think his rookie season when he hurt that forearm.
I mean, I feel like we're in the LeBron James zone here. I mean, this guy, he needs this help. He's a great defensive tackle. If he's such a great defensive tackle, why does he need so much help?
Well, that's the league. You have to have a whole unit to get constant pressure on people. You can't rely on one. Let me just say one guy and an interior lineman to get your pressure, right. And you've got nothing coming off the edges. That's easy. That's it. Right. I posted on there. They said the Panthers. He said his best defensive lineman he played against was Gerald McCoy. He said, but that's the only guy you got a game plan for. There's nobody else anywhere else is going to do anything.
Yeah. Somebody says, can you play a whole season? Sue's only missed 2 games because he's been suspended.
That's good. And that's a key part too. I'm not going to argue that either. Durability.
Right.
I'm fine with if he doesn't fit this scheme. He's getting overpaid. And look, the production.
There's other factors, right? The general manager hasn't been good. There's a lot of things that haven't been on this team, but the one constant that's been here has been McCoy. And I just, the attitude of him, the whole, you owe me this, you owe me that. Nobody owes anybody anything. It's a business at the end of the day. I get it. He was here for 9 years, great community guy, good player, not a great player. And if everybody's getting upset about it, I don't understand it. Because if you want different results, then why do you continue to do the same thing over and over again? That's what I've been looking at. And looking at Ndamukong Suh with Vita Vea and Nassib, I think it's an improvement. And then you add coaching to that with Todd Bowles and also Bruce Arians. And he even said that he wanted to play for Todd Bowles. So here's a player that wants to play for him. You have Steve Weish on NFL Network who said basically, Todd Bowles plays an odd front. Suh has played nose tackle and defensive end. So basically he's flexible. Go ahead and explain that odd front kind of deal to the fans out there if they're not really, sure about what Steve Weish and what this 3-4 defense could look like from Todd Bowles, Blake.
I wish I had some more visual to show them, but I can explain it the best way I can. They're basically just going to line up either strong side. That'll be either the tight end or H-back, whatever you got. You're going to slide the strong side, and then that means they'll play strong or weak side in that gap and then send somebody back across the other side where somebody either has to come down and block one of your penetrating defensive linemen, double teaming, or come down, try to get your hand, and you can slip a linebacker in there. It's so many variations. Like I said, it's much easier to show you on video. But that's what it's going to look like. The 3 guys, the 3 interior linemen in a 3-4, their main job is penetration. J.J. Watt and a couple other players that play in that system are lucky enough to get sacks and beat those pressures and double teams and stuff like that because that's just the player they are and get a bunch of sacks. But really in that type of system, a 3-4 end or a 3-4 interior lineman isn't really made to get a whole bunch of sacks. It's really going to come from your edges. That's why a lot of DNs are now labeled as outside linebackers or just edge rushers now. But you do got players that are going to get a lot of penetration in there. I'm looking forward to seeing Suh and Vea get a lot of that interior pressure and possibly get some quarterback hits, force some arid throws. And those are stats that I talk about that nobody's going to look at when the season is done. They're like, oh, well, Suh didn't get a whole bunch of sacks or Vea didn't get a whole bunch of sacks. You got to really look at arid throws they forced to throw when somebody got an interception or the pressure that they got forced another lineman to come down and the guy that came off the edge was able to get the sack. They didn't necessarily make the play. They didn't make the tackle, but they made the play.
All right. Somebody asked, why did the Rams let him go? I think because they had so much money. They had so much money invested in their defense and overall team. So they decided to let him go. And also, they didn't see it from him in the regular season. That's been the key. He played better in the postseason than the regular season. So that will be something that you have to watch with Suh. And a lot of people have talked about it. But I do think with the coaching of having, a Todd Bowles defense and just having the motivation where you're having a 1-year contract and basically you have to be productive this year in order to get your next payday. Keith Larson mentioned this. He's getting advice from Warren Buffett, and over the time he's made $139 million in the NFL. So this is a guy that a lot of people are looking at as a mercenary, but at the end of the day, this is a mercenary that you want on your team because it's going to improve, and he wants to play up to that next contract. He's just behind Larry Fitzgerald for non-quarterbacks. Fitzgerald has $163 million. So it's not like he's not a smart man. He is. He did a lot of the stuff that we kind of talked about with Evan Smith, which will be interesting to see if the Bucs keep him. What's the practice like? But that was in 2011. He really hasn't had those type of incidents lately. Would you agree with that?
On which part, Peter? I was reading some of the comments.
Yeah, I'm reading some of the comments too. Get as many comments as possible.
There's a lot of good stuff in there, man.
Yeah, there is. I mean, go ahead and put it out there if you can catch them. I mean, there's been a lot of comments.
Yeah, so I'm trying to help you. There's a lot. Okay, Ben Corbin always comes up here good. I'm gonna read a couple of veterans, a couple of new guys. He says 55 and 105 since 2009. It starts with the Glazers. They've hired dimwits for GMs, and this is what happens when you have situation like McCoy. Yeah, McCoy has pretty much been to blame for the defense, which I can argue, but I can't argue. He has been here, and Levante David's been here, but I'll just say as a total, man, we've yet to fix the one thing that we refuse to fix: our defensive line. We're in a league, and I actually looked it up. All three quarterbacks were actually NFL, and I brought this up. All quarterbacks in our division have been league MVPs in our division, right, and have all been to Super Bowls. But you don't want to get a pass rush? What are you thinking? And we did it again in a defensive this draft. It was a defensive line friendly defensive line, and we drafted 3 more DBs. I don't know what we're trying to do here. I really hope that we can get pressure and production at a wide off the edge, and then JPP goes down. So now we're relying on slipping my Shaq Barrett and Carl Nassib. And a lot of guys who haven't been proven yet, and that's what we're going with now. We're optimistic coming into the season again. And what if one of those guys go down? Now, who do we lead to now? So I don't know.
I mean, I'll throw this out at you because you've been a Bucs fan for a long time, and there's a lot of Bucs fans out there. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think of Warren Sapp? Is he a dirty player?
I'm pausing because I'm trying to remember his whole entire career, the dirtiest stuff he did. I know a lot of people were upset with that block.
Skipping through practices.
That was later in the career. Yeah. He got older, which shouldn't have done that. I agree. Shouldn't have done that.
I mean, do you people say, well, Sue, he's an a-hole. Wouldn't you say that Warren Sapp was one of the biggest a-holes?
Oh, yeah. Off the field?
Right, but on the field too.
Off the field, he's a horrible person.
Okay, but on the field, when he it was illegal at the time.
Legal hit, but it's just an unwritten rule that you do.
Right,
it's an unwritten rule.
Right, and still people in the Tampa Bay area love the guy because he was on their team and he was productive and he was a dominating 3 technique.
Well, a lot of people tend to overlook things when you do things that benefit what benefits them. So a lot of people overlook stuff like that. But I agree. I get what you're saying. You're trying to say you're trying to tie in Sue and Warren Sapp together. I get what you're trying to do.
I mean, not every guy on a football team is a choir boy. Okay. I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason why some of these guys get paid millions of dollars and they're successful because they're crazy and they have to be crazy. And look, I'm not saying McCoy is a bad player. He's a good player. He's not a great player. He's not a Warren Sapp. And of course, that was probably the biggest indictment here coming with the Bucs because people look at the salary and they say, well, he's making as much or more than Warren Sapp, so you should be like that. He's not taking over games.
It's unfair, and I'm advocating for Devin White. I'm advocating stop putting Derek Brooks' expectation. I'm gonna say it every time I'm on the air. Dude, stop putting Derek Brooks' expectation on Devin White. Stop. Let this man earn his own name.
And Alan Sullivan is telling me to stop. And I'm saying, look, again, you can have your opinion here, but just tell me if you're a Bucs fan and you're so in love with the idea of McCoy being a gentleman or being a good guy off the field, and not necessarily showing up every quarter on the field, were you a Warren Sapp fan too? And then if you're so against this signing of Ndamukong Suh, then you must have been not a Warren Sapp fan. And then if you're not a Warren Sapp fan, then I'm going to call you out because I know you're lying, because I know that you were rooting for Warren Sapp in the heyday of that Bucs defense. Everybody was.
Come on. Biggest concern, and you said it, and I'm surprised you haven't touched on it, was that that the Rams and yourself even said that Suh's issue is Suh going to play 100% through the games, or is he just going to show up in the games he feels like it? That's why I have a problem. What you're going to say, Suh, is your culture change? Oh God, no! I got a serious problem with that. Well, if that's what you're settling with,
I think there's a lot of people that are upset about the fact that and we got Josh here in the room here. We're gonna
get in here. Josh, need to get on this camera, son. I'm calling you out like Dom Sports Channel. You better get on here.
On the camera and let him talk a little bit. But
is he here? Oh, okay.
Yeah, are you on there, Josh?
Yeah, there he is. Slide that camera down so I can see you.
I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr. Blake Cabell, and we got Josh in the building here. I'm not saying his last name. I'm just gonna say.
Wait, how do you pronounce it?
OMG.
No, I want to hear him say it, Peter.
I'm going to say Josh OMG. How about that? Now go ahead, Josh. I know you feel strongly about this. Go ahead, have your say.
It's fine. It's fine. It's just if you break it down into 3 short syllables, Omorgy.
Oh, that's easy. Like Omorgy.
It becomes a lot easier.
You're still talking about that? Come on.
That's easy. Omorgy.
Omorgy.
What's that? Hey. Is that West African?
Yes, sir. Nigerian. My But no, Peter, seriously, I just wanted to come on, and actually I wanted to agree with you, Blake. I wanted to agree with you, and I think that as far as Jason Light goes as a GM, I've been a big fan, a big supporter of Jason Light and his drafts. Mm-hmm. I do think that over the years he's predicated more of his draft picks towards the offense. And whether or not you would like to say, well, does offensive loaded drafts year after year do this to a defense that might have players in all 3 levels that can already play might help out. Well, this is where we're at right now. The Bucs have a top 5 offense and a bottom half defense. And I feel like having those two, it's just not a combination for a playoff ready team.
Nope.
Right. I do think that the moves that we're making right now are going to be putting us on that track for sure.
No, I definitely think that this offense could be top 5. And I think if this defense is just an average defense, and I think anytime you get a Suh, you're adding Devin White. I get it. He's a rookie, so you don't know how it's going to turn out. I do think they have some players, and I do think they have a good enough defensive coordinator that can get all these pieces to at least be average. They may start out slow, or they may start out fast, but at this point, they're going to be a lot better than they were the last couple years. And a lot of people are saying, well, do I get this right? You're happy with McCoy hitting the road? Yes. Because that's the only thing that this team is known. So everybody's talking about a losing culture, but the one constant that's been here ever since this losing culture has started has been Gerald McCoy. So, and to tell you the truth, I believe in 2010, when they went 10-6, did not McCoy miss the majority of that season?
He did, yeah.
Okay. So what I'm saying is I'm looking at it from, again, the culture shock thing. You have an old school coach that's calling out McCoy. A lot of people didn't like that. I like that. That's what this team needed. When people are saying, well, he doesn't have a right to do that because McCoy's been here. Yeah, he's been here for all those losing seasons. He's been here with the 6 sacks a year. That's what he's been. He's been through losing. So if this coach is going to call him out and call other players out, they need to respect him. They need to rise to the challenge if they want to be on this team. And like I said before, my main contention was the organization wanted to go in a different direction. They wanted to go with a winning culture, or culture shock with changing the leadership on this team. Furthermore, they didn't want to pay a guy $13 million who's only going to get you 6 sacks a year and basically can't stay healthy for most of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think what it all came down to is once the 2018 season ended, I feel Gerald McCoy, as well as some of the guys in the front office, knew that it might be his last his last season playing for the Bucs. I think some of the fans even knew that going into Week 17. Here's where I'm split.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Buccaneers and the way that it was handled, not to say that Gerald McCoy wasn't going to be released, not to say that Gerald McCoy wouldn't have been traded had they found a trade partner. I do believe that the situation could have been handled much sooner. I feel like just the essential drag of the situation, I don't think it rubbed a lot of fans the right way. And it's regardless of the fact that McCoy was going to play on a different team in 2019. I think we've all had that set in stone. I feel like it was bound to happen. I feel like the way that it was dragged these last few months with, a lot of us not knowing if he was going to stay on the Bucs, a lot of us not knowing, if a restructure was coming, we just didn't know. And, one day we get the report that he's released. And, some of us felt like it should have been done a lot quicker, a lot sooner, and maybe a little bit more professional.
Right.
It sounds like Deshaun Jackson all over again. You let that linger. You let it linger. You let it poison your locker room.
Deshaun Jackson, they were trying to get value for him. They couldn't get value for him. I mean, the only thing where they shot themselves in the foot is when Bruce Arians came out and said he's not the same player he was 4 years ago. But Bruce was telling the truth, because if you look at the statistics, he definitely peaked in 2013. That was the only thing they really kind of messed up. And then Bruce calls him out and says, "Do you love football?" He's trying to challenge this player to see if he wants to be here, and he failed. And it is the microcosm of what this Buccaneer defense and era has been about. It has been soft. It has been, mentally challenged, not in a good way. There is no mentality besides losing and softness to this Buccaneer defense. And Bruce Arians basically did every Buccaneer fan a favor for calling this guy out and saying, "Hey, do you want to play here? Do you want to be a part of this? If you don't, then we're going to try to get rid of him." They couldn't get rid of him. That's why they waited so long. I tell you right now, the reason why they waited is because they thought they could get Quinnen Williams possibly to drop to number 5. That's what Albert Breer said of Sports Illustrated, Monday Morning Quarterback, that with everything that was talked about with Devin White possibly being there at number 5, if Quinnen Williams was there at number 5, they would have taken him over Devin White.
That's fair. That's fair.
I agree. I think any man with a half a brain would have picked that.
Right.
That boy's a beast.
Right.
And I think I saw some reports. Can't sure if we put that out. Leonard Williams is allegedly supposed to be a free agent next season too.
Sure.
So he could possibly come here.
Right. People say, "Well, why didn't you trade for him?" Well, 14 million reasons why you're not going to trade for him, but 60 tackles his first 2 years, and then it's kind of tailed off, but he's still 24 years old, guys. So he definitely has potential. So look, whatever happens with the Jets, and right now, who knows what's going to happen with the Jets, because they got rid of a tight end today. We'll talk about, a lot of people want to talk about in Leggett, who most likely is going to be a third option. But, people say Cameron Brate. You can't trade Cameron Brate because he's on the injury list at this point. He's still making $7 million, so you can't get rid of him. I wouldn't get rid of him at this point. But,
for depth reasons, quality depth. Quality depth.
Exactly. And then you go back to the Jets situation. They're looking to trade him right now. If they can't get anything for him, is there a possibility he gets cut because you filled it with Quinnen Williams? So you have both of those players right now. Do they fit in the defense? If Leonard Williams next year is a free agent, or he's out there and he's going to come here for a cheap price of a 1-year deal, you have to do the deal because Todd Bowles is familiar with him. He's 24 years old. He's got potential. He's not 31. He's not 32 years old. Sue is not a long-term answer. What he is the answer to the question. The question at the beginning of this process was, why did Bruce Arians come out of retirement? He wants to win now. This signing right here basically tells you, with all the signings in free agency, with the 1-year contracts, it's prove it. They want to win. They're basically going to look at all these players to see if they're productive. If they're not productive, they get rid of them. They have more cap next year. Agree, guys?
Yeah, no
I agree. I agree. If there's a plan to the madness, I'm cool with that. Just as long as you got a plan. I don't want you to come in making these moves and you come in the next season. So, guys,
but Blake, now? Another thing you mentioned earlier in the show that I kind of want to retouch on is
sure, go ahead.
I'm not sure. I'm really trying to grasp why William Golson is still on.
Thank you.
I want people to realize right now, because it might, it
slipping
goes
through the cracks
a lot. It really does. William
Slipping through the
Gholston
cracks.
signed a $35 million contract with incentives added. A $35 million contract. We constantly forget about it, but he's absolutely not played up to it. And
God, no.
for respect reasons, I'll say he's an average run defender. He's not a sack
Sure.
guy. And
No, he's never been. He's never been a sack guy. He was never a sack guy coming out of Michigan State. He's never been a sack guy. People say, well, he's got potential. He's got potential. Potential is the most
leave my team. Oh, go ahead.
Right. It's the most overly used word, fellas. He's 3.75 versus the cap. So that may be a situation where Bucs are going to definitely look at cutting. And what you're watching right now is the passionate edition. Bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense here on Tuesday night on the B Live app. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr. Blake Cabell. And I'm just going to say, Josh, Omar Reggie. You're killing me. You're absolutely killing me. I'm just going to say Josh OMG. How about that? Do you like that?
With whatever works.
The part that was shocker to him, Peter, is I knew exactly where that was.
You know what? I tell you right now.
I said West Africa, and he said, what?
Yep, you sure did. And of course, tune in to Blake and Blake Sports on Saturday starting at 1:00, live at Ferg's 1320 Central Avenue in St. Pete. We will be there. And we got Mr. Philip Schwegler in the building. So let's get him on here.
I'll tell you a secret, Josh. I was dating a girl. She was from Uganda, so
that's what it is.
So I'm gonna let it all out and let you just think I was lucky. I got good insights.
We got Phil up
Can you
here.
hear me?
So, yeah,
there he is, Big P.
Oh my God! You know how long that took me to get my computer to work?
You gotta get off the AOL dial-up. I don't have any more of them discs anymore, Phil.
I'm on my last 15, man. What is up, guys?
Oh, buddy, we're doing good here. We're having a passionate conversation. Of course, the big story, Gerald McCoy released officially by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which freed up that $13 million, and then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed Ndamukong Suh, a controversial decision because there's still a lot of fans out there that like McCoy in his era. I disagree. I say he was a good player, not a great player. But for me, bringing in Suh is a culture shock to this locker room and a sign that the Bucs are ready to win now. What do you say, Phil?
I'm right there with you, kind of with the whole culture, the whole culture thing the Buccaneers need to get over. A lot of these players have been here. Like you look at DeMar Dotson, Levante David, Gerald McCoy. Those guys have been here for so long, and for so long they've been on losing teams. I mean, Gerald McCoy's had 2 winning seasons since he's been a Buccaneer. Back in 2012, and then in 2016 we went 9-7. So, Ndamukong Suh brings this whole new attitude to the team. The whole he kind of has people that kind of fear him. I mean, you can look at the stomping on people type of thing that's got him suspended or in trouble or whatnot. That's a nasty factor that I don't think we saw as far as personality wise. Gerald McCoy, he was a good player. He did, but he get at. So now we start players on this team. We're gonna push you towards what Todd Bowles envisions on the team, being a nasty, aggressive defense. I mean, look at the draft. They drafted guys that can run downhill, really make an impact of being like an aggressive defense. And now you get someone like Ndamukong Suh can gap up the middle. He's decent at run blocking and all that. You get this aggressive guy in the middle of the line now to go with Vita Vea, who really started to come on at the end of the season. I think it is a good thing for the Buccaneers. They're saving the $3 million. And yeah, I think it was a good signing.
Yeah, I think it was a good signing too. Josh, I'll tell you what, we're going to put you in the lobby. We're going to get Mark Magana in here. All right, so just stand by here. All right, let me get you in here. Yeah, hold on.
That a red flag.
Yeah, we're gonna get him in here. And what you're watching right now is the evolution.
Oh Lord, there he is.
What's up, brothers? What's up, fellas?
What's going on, buddy? I never got a chance to do a show with you, so welcome to the evolution of sports television. It's the Sports Web, buddy.
That's right. I know we haven't gotten around to connecting there. I think we'll be able to do it hopefully this week. But I did want to jump in on this conversation, this squad battle we got going on here.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I'll just keep it brief, man. For me, a lot of what Blake has been saying has been resonating with me. For me, you look at a guy like Gerald, absolutely, he really has it. The playoffs, obviously, we haven't sniffed those in a minute here. You can't deny that. But overall, I just would argue that it's an overall team effort to get to the playoffs, and you can't, especially not a defensive tackle. That's my biggest thing. As a defensive tackle, what is he going to do? I mean, what's the man going to do? He can only do so much. And I wrote an article a couple weeks ago, and basically was just kind of looking at the whole situation. And I looked at the picks, the premier picks, top 100 picks that Tampa Bay has spent on defensive linemen to help Gerald McCoy and to kind of give him some assistance to get to the playoffs, right? You have 35 total career sacks in Tampa from all of those guys that were drafted since 2012. 35 total career sacks for all of them during their time in Tampa. As we all know, a lot of them got better after leaving Tampa. That happens. Adrian Claiborne, probably one of the guys that got better when he left. But sure. You look at the guys on the board that were drafted by the Buccaneers, they weren't worth much. And Gerald has quite overperformed that level while he's been on a bad team that has given him no help really on the defensive line in terms of draft picks, free agency. I mean, free agents like Chris Baker was supposed to be a big signing. That didn't pan out, right? And
Chris
so
terrible.
Get him, Mark.
Right.
Get him. Get him, Mark.
My only thing with that is, for me, this last tenure of Light, he's really hasn't done the best job of paying attention to the defensive line. I'm a huge Jason Light fan. I really am.
I am too.
But defensive line has been his Achilles heel, really, this time. He's really struggled with defensive line. Right. And Blake, that was what I was, and I heard you saying it too. I was hoping this draft, loaded with defensive line talent.
You took backs.
Maybe. Right. Like,
you took corners.
But anyways, that's just my take. Overall, I understand, and you pointed this out, Peter. The financial situation, $13 million.
Not arguing.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you there. I just don't like to see the way that the organization has trashed him on the way out, up and down, on his way out. And I mean, what have we had on the Buccaneers in the past couple of years that we could really say, oh yeah, I'm a fan of this guy. Levante David, Quan Alexander for a short time, and Gerald McCoy. I mean, there really hasn't been, I know Jameis is a big, FSU and then to Tampa. I understand that connection, but I mean, we're talking about guys that have performed, and I don't know if Jameis is quite in that category yet. Does he have the potential? Absolutely. But anyways, that's a different conversation that I know most people would love to argue with me about. So, but anyways, that's just my take. That's just my take on it.
And Mark, it's a good take, and it's been a take that's been out there a lot with the help and not necessarily trying to draft, and then if you're not drafting a Noah Spence and you're going out there and getting a Robert Ayers, which doesn't definitely work out for them at all. I get it, but to me, I think it comes down to, and I see what everybody's point is with Arians calling him out, but I think again, he's an old school type of coach. He definitely ruined his trade value by calling him out. But I think he was trying to see if he could raise to the challenge. And basically, I think Ben Cornett hit this in the comment section, that there have been so many coaches that have kind of catered to him. There have been so many coaches that have kind of said, there are more player coaches. And now you finally have a guy that's going to come in here and expect accountability, which this team hasn't necessarily had. So, look, I'm not going to disagree with you that he hasn't necessarily had all the help. But when people are talking about him as being in terms of a great defensive tackle that makes so much money, when has he ever made anybody else better around him? Whether it's a good player, when has he made those players around him good? When has he ever made this defense?
This is like basketball, Peter.
But there's efforts where he shows up in the first and second quarter, and then he's non-existent in the second half. We've seen it. We look at the tape. We've seen it.
I mean, football is so much more different than basketball.
name a signature. He's almost, he kind of reminds me of LeBron James to a certain degree, right?
Do that.
I mean, he shows up in the first half, and then when the ball's in his hands in the fourth quarter late, he doesn't have the killer instinct.
Careful. Phil's here,
LeBron.
and Phil will get upset. Phil will get upset real quick.
So I'm not even getting into that.
Hey, I'm a big LeBron supporter. Right?
Everybody likes to use that.
I'm waiting for the Bucs to sign him for $3 million. All right.
Just for 3, we can afford that.
Look,
I don't think we can. I don't think we can.
I'm always amazed at this because people say, well, McCoy necessarily hasn't had the help. Well, what did Sapp have around him when he was here? What did he have? Chidi Ahana?
Everybody.
Okay.
Everybody.
Not Akeem Spence and Stevie T
everybody.
and
really
Daquan Powers.
Well,
none of those
should
guys.
be in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, you had Chidi Ahana too. You had Reagan Upshaw, who was okay. I mean, you had Marcus
They
Jones.
don't have to be all-stars, Peter. They have
But
to at
he
least
made
contribute.
those players better.
No, Peter,
and
no.
when they left,
Because when
they were
he comes
nothing.
out, they come in.
Blake found the fire.
How's he-
Blake found the fire, brother.
when he comes out, they come in. So no, he's not making them better. They're his backups. And then when he comes out, they can produce. They all can't play.
You can sit there and talk about defensive rotation all day long, Blake.
That
but
matters. We don't have it.
Players at the defensive end spot were just players. They were okay. They weren't.
I'm not arguing that. The word is productive.
But that's
We don't have productive players.
Okay, hold on. Check this out, though.
Behind him.
Check this out. You're not only, when you're talking about the defense, right? You're not only looking at the defensive line, and my friend Grayson pointed it out to me too. Listen, you're looking at the secondary as well. The secondary is a big part of that. What secondary has Gerald McCoy? I mean, who we had in the secondary? When you look at a defensive tackle, but I mean, right? I mean, when you look at the defense as a whole, there's really not a secondary that was there. You look at guys like Sapp. He had help on the defensive line. I would argue he had Simeon Rice, who was better than any player Gerald McCoy has played with besides Jason Pierre-Paul. I mean, and that's a maybe. That's a maybe because, like you said, Blake, he should be in the Hall of Fame. But that's the best player. That's the best player that Gerald McCoy has played with is Jason Pierre-Paul. Michael Bennett didn't go on to get good until he left. He was decent while he was here. He wasn't that good, and due to injury, which you also have pointed out, Peter, he wasn't able to play early on in his career with the torn biceps that he had early on and stuff like that. So he didn't even get a chance to maximize the time that he had with Michael Bennett. But then this season, you want to talk about Sue versus Gerald McCoy. Sue put up 4.5 sacks next to Aaron Donald, the best defensive tackle that we possibly have ever seen. Meanwhile, Gerald had Jason Pierre-Paul, who did really well, put up sack numbers himself, and still put up more sacks. Gerald still put up more sacks than Sue did. So that's kind of the confusing part with me with the McCoy versus Sue. Look, I'm not upset that we signed Sue. I'm upset that because we signed Sue, now everybody has to trash Gerald even more than he was already trashed. Because let's be honest, Tampa fans have never given Gerald the respect that he deserved. I mean, very few people to me have given him the respect that he deserved while he was here. So that's my only point. It's like, okay, you signed Sue. It is what it is. But then that doesn't mean we trash Gerald completely because all of a sudden we signed Sue.
It may be the reason why, and what you're watching right now is the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr. Blake Cabell, Mark Magana, and of course, Philip Schwagler, the chef over there in the corner, not saying anything.
You guys are all yelling at each other. So I'm waiting.
This is what happens here on the Sports Web. It's the evolution of sports talk television, and we'll take your comments tonight, of course. Also, a lot of comments, a lot of heated discussion, and that's okay. That's what we do here on the web.
Keep it friendly. It's fine arguing.
Right,
absolutely.
Nothing wrong with disagreeing.
At the end of the night, but here's the thing, with McCoy, just a couple years ago, people were calling him out on social media, and then he was saying, come to one Buck place. I'm going to fight you. I'm going to do this. I mean, he's a talker. He's always talking. People see him, the perception. I get it. He's a good player. But when you're saying, I'm sorry, Mr. Brady, you're apologizing to Big Ben, you're doing this, you're doing that. I mean, I think it's just a bad optic at this point, and I don't think there's a lot of fans that appreciated it. And then on top of it, when you look at the end of the day, what is it about, fellas? Yeah, it's a team win, but it's about wins and losses. And when you're going to look back at the Gerald McCoy era, you're not going to associate him with a winning culture. What you're going to associate him with is a losing culture and a guy that basically was more concerned about his personal accomplishments instead of the wins for this team. Just my opinion.
Go ahead, Phil. I know you got something to say. I know you got something to say about the save. Sorry to people going down there.
I mean, I'm for one, I don't like that. Okay. And I'll be one of those fans that say I hate it. Okay. I came up in the military and you're taught, you're supposed to be the most badass person out there. Even if you're in a sea of badass people, you need to be the biggest one there. Apologizing to the opposing quarterback, playing defensive tackle and getting a hit on him. I mean, I don't think that should ever happen. But then again, you have to look at his play. He's still the fastest guy off the line playing defensive tackle for the Buccaneers and has been for a long time. Other opposing offenses respect that, and they game plan around that. You hear it every week, every season, whenever Sean Payton gets up there to talk about what are they going to do for the Buccaneers. When you have Matt Ryan, he'll talk about, Gerald McCoy, got to be careful with this. He's still respected in that or in that aspect. The thing is the fans, and that's the biggest part of it, I think, right now. That's what's getting everybody angry, and I've seen it all day yesterday. I've seen it all day today on Facebook, Twitter, all that. The fans get a perspective of what they think a player should be like, and they totally don't look at how their stats are. They look at maybe that one thing like, oh, I'm sorry, Big Ben, for hitting you. And then that's it. That's what sticks in their mind. And that's the kind of thing that they're going to remember. And like Mark was saying, the disrespect he gets coming out the door. I mean, you can look at the Buccaneers. They totally handled this totally wrong. I mean, you're looking at back at, like Blake was saying with Derek Brooks. I mean, that was handled horribly. Derek Brooks is like one of the best players that ever came to Tampa Bay, brought him to championship, was on that that amazing Tampa Bay defense during that 97 to 2002, 2003 era. I mean, they did not respect him correctly when he was on his way out. And I think that's what we're seeing right now with Gerald McCoy, especially in the fan base. I don't think so much it's, Stu is so much better and we got him for cheap. He's going to be a better Gerald McCoy. It's Gerald McCoy and the Buccaneers couldn't agree on $13 million. So they brought in a guy who could play similar to what Gerald McCoy has done for $10 million instead of $13 million. And I think that's what we have to wrap our head around. I mean, they haven't even taken one snap, okay? One snap. Go ahead, Pete.
He hasn't taken one snap yet. And I think I'll say this, Phil. I think he's an upgrade over Gerald McCoy simply because schematically right now you're running a 3-4 defense. You have no idea, even if you kept Gerald McCoy, could he play defensive end? Could he be a fit in this defense? You already know that Ndamukong Suh has played in a 3-4 defense. He did last year with the Rams. Again, there's some mixed results, but did you see him in the postseason? Did you see what kind of terror he could be with the tackles for loss? Maybe not necessarily getting after with sacks with 1.5, but still being a terror. If you add that to that defense and you can get him to play to that level, and I think that's what it's about. Can you get him to play to that level on every snap? But I think it is an upgrade because schematically, you know that Suh can play in this 3-4 defense. You were not sure if McCoy could play because he's never played in it.
Well, we don't know if Suh will be able to play in this system either, but we'll never know.
No.
We'll never know.
Playing this 3-4 defense because he's played in it before, Blake.
I mean, how much 3-4 are they actually going to play? They're still going to be in their base nickel defense. Yes, they're going to have those packages where they rotate out Vita Vea or Ndamukong Suh now, or, you even see Bo Allen in the middle. We don't know what they're going to do yet. And I think that's what a lot of people are jumping ahead to. They're just automatically going to, Gerald McCoy sucked. Couldn't get postseason, couldn't get all these sacks, all this and that. The only thing Ndamukong Suh, in my opinion, is really good at is tackle for losses, getting behind the line of scrimmage, stopping the running back, and then solo tackles. Something Gerald McCoy I don't think is totally great is getting those solo tackles. And I think that's the kind of stat that people kind of start really honing in on, because that's the defensive tackle beating his man at whatever success rate and getting that solo tackle by himself, being that, I guess you want to say, game changer or pace changer type thing. That's something we didn't see a lot out of Gerald McCoy, but Gerald McCoy was still disruptive against the opposing offensive lines, that they had to put extra people in there. They had to put 3 blockers on him. I mean, he had to be planned for ahead of time. So it's really hard to really outweigh who is better at this and who is better at that. Because overall, I mean, you look at the stats, they're pretty much the same player.
Yep.
It's fair assessment.
And
So what's your go ahead.
Sorry, no, go ahead, Peter. What you just say? What we're watching right now is a sports one.
Yeah, you already know what he's about to say.
Sports talk. Would you shut up and be quiet, Blake Campbell? I'm Peter Blake along with Mark Magana and of course Philip Schwegler here having a great conversation about the future of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, they're signing with Ndamukong Suh today and the release of Gerald McCoy, which has been a controversial subject between the fan base. But at the end of the day, what is done is done. But go ahead, finish your point.
No, I was actually just gonna pose this question to you guys. So this is something I was thinking about. So Jason Pierre-Paul, right? The car accident that happened, and we're not sure. We're gonna let it heal, and so I feel that maybe that part of the reason why you can look at it as being so mishandled, because if this doesn't pan out, if Jason Pierre-Paul really struggles with this injury, you are really struggling on that defensive line, because now, okay, Sue, you got Sue, right? And that's great. But other than that, there's, Carl Nassib. You're counting on Carl Nassib. You're counting on Noah Spence, Shaquille Barrett, guys who have shown potential, but haven't exactly given us what we would want to see. None of them are 10 sack, kind of guys. So my question is, do you guys think that this is why they delayed the Gerald McCoy situation so long, right? Because there was that time where we were unsure after the draft, and then the news came out about Jason Pierre-Paul, and then you had an extra week or two between that and this actual release of McCoy. And I just wanted to pose that scenario because it's something I was kind of going through in my head, like, why did they wait? And then I thought to myself, well, maybe they waited because they weren't really sure what was going to happen with Jason Pierre-Paul, which shows me that they mismanaged it from the beginning, because that means that they were concerned about the depth of the defensive line, and they had the opportunity to fix that by taking a defensive lineman in the draft, and they chose not to do that besides Anthony Nelson later in the draft. What do you guys think about that?
Well, look, they should have, to me, I thought they should have taken a defensive end like a Josh Allen if he were on the board, but they were dead set in taking a Devin White. And to me, I think they had a plan that it was going to be Sue all along who was going to replace McCoy. I don't think they ever anticipated bringing back McCoy at that number. With that being said, I definitely think there is some question marks about their defensive line going forward. I mean, they're, like you said, you have a Noah Spence, who again has been a man on a milk carton. You have Anthony Nelson, who is a rookie. It's always a little bit difficult to see. That's your boy. He's still on the team. Yeah, William Golston. But look, the roster is still fluid, right, fellas? So you could definitely still make some changes. There is still that second wave of free agency. Now, where you get that money is the next question, and I guess we're kind of move on here. Who could you see being cut if the Buccaneers decide to make some more moves? Because as we learned with Bruce Arians talking about it, there could be some moves still made on this defense to improve it, especially the defensive line.
Well, I'm going to answer Mark's
I'll go
question
first.
originally.
Just to make fun of Blake real quick. Dang it.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead, bro.
Go ahead. Go for it.
No, he's on the last thought. I'm going on the next thought. So let's close out the last thought.
Okay.
Yeah, because Peter moved on past Mark's question. Jesus, Peter, it's just rude.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm just
No, you're
Mark,
good.
Mark asked, was that the reason they let it linger? Yes, it's well, it was two Blake.
Well,
it was one.
It's still Blake and Blake.
It's two Blake. So what he's
Blake in the background chopping his gums like always.
It goes again. The word for this whole offseason has been mismanagement. So like I said, me and Peter talked about this before. You should have went to McCoy. Lo and behold, hey buddy, you're going to ask him these questions. If you really likes football, you could have did that all at once. Look,
right.
You're getting paid $13 million. You want to budge from that? No, you want to stay at 13? Okay, fine. But with that saying, it's a possibility we might cut you or trade you or whatever and try to bring in somebody because we're going to have to sign these rookies coming up and possibly get other players in here. You understand all that, right? Cool. Yeah. We walk out of the room, say whatever they got to say, we're done. We're all on the same page here. We're not lingering doing Instagram Instagram rants and all this other stuff. Because if you've done that, I believe that doesn't happen because the conversation is already led before all this to happen. But you let it linger. You let the fans get pissed off and angry, not knowing what's going on. We did what Tampa Bay always does. Be good at being inconsistent and not doing stuff consistently correct. That's what we're good at doing that here. And that's just what it is. Go ahead, Phil.
All right, so moving on to Peter's question, who the Buccaneers kind of get rid of now, and I'm gonna go right for your boy there, Blake. William Goldston, man, I think he's going to be one of the players that might end up on the chopping block over there. And then you got to look at the secondary. How many players did they draft in the past 2 seasons to play in that secondary? So Ryan Smith, I mean, that's got to be the odd man out. He's due over $2 million this year.
Yep.
That kind of brings me to my point too with the Vernon Hargreaves thing. I know we'll probably get to that later, but as far as like him not being mentally ready, and then him saying today that he was just, it was just an injury. It wasn't anything like that. Me and Bruce Arians are cool, all that. You got all these rookies and second-year players that are like gnawing at the gums to take over that starting spot, whatever spot you have on the field. Yeah. And then you're going to sit out for an injury on that first week of OTAs. I don't think that's a good look. I mean, he probably gets that because he played at the University of Florida and not Florida State. I'm just kidding. But I don't think that's a good look at all. He should have been out there. As a new coaching staff, you got to be out there and you got to really prove yourself. So, I mean, they just gave him the 5th-year option, but that could be a dark horse type, we don't need you anymore, Vernon. We got all these rookies to do it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely Ryan Smith is on the block at this point because, again, 9 secondary players since 2016. And obviously with the drafting of Sean Bunting and, of course, Jamal Dean, I think now you're looking at players that truly do fit Todd Bowles' defense. To me, is Carlton Davis the odd man out? If it's not Ryan Smith, is it Carlton Davis? Because he showed some flashes of brilliance last year. But, guys, he's in now a different defense, and he's not as fast as you would look at these corners that got drafted this year.
Yeah, Carlton Davis is an interesting one for sure, Peter. I think it's tough. Sorry, no, I was just going to say he's an interesting question mark there as well because you're right about the speed. I think the tough part and it goes back to what we were just talking about. The tough part is your defensive line is pretty thin with the way that it's shaping now. So it's tough to say. I mean, Golston is a good option, but it's like, I mean, the defensive line is already pretty thin as is. And then you look at the secondary. Yeah, they drafted a lot of guys, but very few proven guys back there. I mean, it's not like we're 100% sure that Jamel Dean's going to stay healthy. We hope he does, but it's not. He has some issues there. Bunting from Central Michigan. I like the tape. Still not, it's not proven until they step foot on the field. And that's the tough part is with the 2 positions that you really wanted to improve this offseason, the defensive line has question marks and the secondary still has question marks. So you're hoping that the coaching staff can get it together, but it does make it tough with the mismanagement that I think has happened throughout the offseason, really, especially through the draft and the guys that they could have had because of how loaded the defensive line class really was.
No, I agree with that, and I definitely think they missed out on getting a Jalen Ferguson in the 2nd round, possibly getting a Giselle Polite in the 3rd round. They could have addressed those positions, but they're saying, and you take them for what take them at their word for this defense. The more it's predicated on their linebacking situation. Yeah. They like Devin White off the edge. They like Levante David. They also like trying to put. Go ahead.
I just want to say, you can finish. I just want to put this while we're on that topic before we go on to something else.
Right.
Mark my words. The one pick in this draft that we missed on and had a whole bunch of opportunities to get it, and you'll remember this because I'll make sure I'm saying it live on air, is Jalen Ferguson in the 3rd round that beat Terrell Suggs' sack record in college out of a small college. Just remember I said that. That's the pick we missed out on, sat in the 3rd round. You can go on.
Are you talking about the end from Louisiana Tech?
Yeah, Louisiana Tech.
Okay, yeah. See, I'm on the opposite end. I don't think he's going to be good. So let's remember this, and we'll see. We'll come back to this one because I don't think he's going to be all that good. We'll have to see. Yeah, there you go.
Well, somebody says Keith says Terry Beckner Jr., Terry Beckner Jr., Terry Beckner Jr. So look, I get it. He's a late round pick. I get it. There's rookies out there. They're slow to develop besides maybe a Bosa who did it a couple years ago. And there's been other cases that have, basically popped off. But with that being said, is there a guy like a Nelson or a Beckner that could thrive in this defense? And maybe we're kind of overlooking, and the Bucs are saying, you know what? We know something that you don't know about these players that we got.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Beckner's going to be great in the one gap system. The reason I got excited about him was his energy on the field. He is out there fighting. That's what I like to see. If that's the type of attitude we're going to get here, and that's what Bowles and BA said all the time, was that we want guys that are going to be attacking. I'm cool with that.
Boom!
And I think,
right there. That's why you signed Ndamukong Suh. Let the truth set you free. He's an attacking defensive tackle and defensive end. There you go. That's my point.
I'll say this too about the draft class. I like the Anthony. Go. I was going to say I like Anthony Nelson. That's all. Okay, go.
I like him too.
Okay.
He's more athletic.
Yeah.
How
Go ahead, Philly.
How cool would it have been to have Ndamukong Suh, Quan Alexander, Levante David, and then JPP playing on the same defense? I mean, that would have been a nasty dog, like crazy fight, I think, between those 4 players and opposing offenses. What do you guys think?
Look, I could do without Quan Alexander, because as attacking as he is, he also missed 78 tackles. So my problem
there.
Right. I mean, yeah, he jumps all around, and I have Johnny Dean here. Johnny Dean thinks I'm ignoring him. I'm definitely not ignoring you, Johnny Dean.
Johnny.
Let's see. Yeah, he goes, You're on Sue's back again.
Let's get him a jersey, Dean.
Will you shut up? Johnny Dean,
make sure it's number 93
of Ndamukong Suh.
Oh my gosh! Don't do that! Don't do that to me! Do not do that!
Peter,
don't even put that number on your back, boy! Don't do it! All right.
Oh God, this is great! This is great. What's watching? Right now is the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr. Blake Cabell, along with Mark Magana, and of course Philip Schwegler, who still owes us food and has not made us food. Guy, you need to come out and cater some food here. I heard you're a world-class chef. I see the pictures, but I don't see the food in front of me. Look, I love chicken wings. I love Ferg's chicken wings and the boneless chicken. But you gotta have something a little different sometime. You're showing me steak and you're showing me the steak, but you're not producing it. What's up with that?
Yeah, I'll take that 13 million back.
I don't know, man.
Shut up.
That's right. Hey, I don't see my name on the screen like everybody else is. Reason why I'm not making food. But
I see what he's trying to say.
Oh,
wait a minute. There we go.
Yeah, where's mine, Peter? Jesus.
all right.
Oh man, I'm trying to run everything here. So, yeah. So we were talking about the tight end that got picked up today, Jordan Leggett. There's been, a couple players that have been let go. I mean, I don't know what's going on with the New York Jets. Do you think there's a possibility? First question with Leggett. Is there a possibility with the Bucs picking him up today, fellas? Do you think he could possibly take Cameron Brate's job, or are we looking too much into that? And then the second question, with Leonard Williams out there, a free agent next year, but making $14 million, is there a possibility where the Jets go into this, they can't get enough for him and he gets cut, or is that wishful thinking?
I think that the Leggett signing was interesting, and I kind of had that same train of thought with the Cam Brate thing. It's interesting to me that they would sign a tight end, off the street like that. Kind of just it just was kind of strange. Maybe it's, hey, Cam's on the block. I don't really know, but I mean, arguably one of Jameis's favorite targets. It would be interesting to see if they do move on from Cam Brate. I like the guy. I like Cam Brate. But yeah, I think it's interesting with OJ Howard in the building. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, Blake and Phil, because I was kind of intrigued by the signing too.
Well,
I think Blake went out here, so let me get him back on. I don't know what's going on with Blake and what he's doing tonight. He's just go ahead, Phil.
I don't know. I was kind of shocked by it too. I don't want to see Cameron Brate go. I think that's without Adam Humphries, Cameron Brate is going to be Jameis Winston's big security blanket. Yeah, he has Mike Evans, but I mean Mike Evans averages so many yards per passing play that it's not really that security feel that dump and pass 5 or 6 yards out. So I'm not sure what's going on with the tight end signing. Like I said, I don't see Brate and Howard. They work so well together. You can disguise Howard in the passing plays. You can hide Cameron Brate for those red zone plays. I don't think you want to take away one of the other of Jameis Winston's favorite targets and targets that he has that great chemistry with, especially being his 5th-year option, where you're going to say, all right, is this the next quarterback for the next 5 years or so, or are we going to get somebody else in the 2020 draft?
Yeah, Leggett was an option for Deshaun Watson at Clemson. He was drafted 5th round, and it looks like because they got rid of the general manager there, Adam Gase is taking over. Basically, he's trying to clean house. Blake, you're back, I guess. I see you there. I hope you're there, but I don't know what's going on. But yeah, I mean, let's read some comments here, and then we'll get some final thoughts. But this has been a great show on the Sports Web. You guys are more than welcome, and we got to get both of you guys to come out to one of our remotes. I don't know if you guys heard, but we're going to be doing watch parties for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers during the road games at Ferg's on Central Avenue. We'll have the pre, the half, and the post game shows. So definitely we can get you on camera, get some camera time. Mark, I'm completely impressed with you. I read your articles. You do a hell of a job. You did a hell of a job.
Appreciate that,
man. Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Philip Schwagler. Just know that if you do make some food, just like somebody pointed out, I do not like vegetables, only spinach and green beans. Okay.
Yeah, so don't even bring the spinach, Phil. No spinach.
Don't bring any veggies.
No, man. I like spinach. I can eat spinach. I can do it. Veggies. Just don't put it in my eggs. Okay. Just don't do that. I just don't understand that whole thought concept of ruin something that's so good and pure. If you want to make eggs, you got to have an omelet and you put bacon in it, and that's good to go. But spinach, no. I eat spinach in my quiche. That's good enough. So there you go.
Well,
all right, I'm done with my rant. Go ahead.
Talking about tight ends and who was on notice. I think the tight end that's on notice.
So yeah, let's read some comments here, and then we will wrap it up for the night with these guys here. I don't know what happened to Blake. I guess Blake tuned out here. I think he went to sleep or something.
I can hear him.
He's on. We can hear him and see him. Yeah, because I can hear him and see him too. He said that the guy that's on notice for the tight end group is Anthony Auclair, which is a good point.
Yeah,
okay.
Anthony.
Yeah, I can't see him here. Okay, yeah, you're absolutely right. He is on this team still, and I heard that he was okay. But the thing is, with Eclair and also with Brate, both of those guys are both pass catchers. Leggett, is he more of a blocker at this point? And this is why they picked him up, because I'm looking at his statistic from last year: 14 receptions, 114 yards, 1 touchdown. Not a lot. He was injured his first year when he came into the league, so you don't know. But maybe the Bucs and Jason Light and maybe Todd Bowles has tipped this organization off to say, you know what, maybe we can get a diamond in the rough here. So just a thought.
Yeah. I mean, even if they get rid of Auclair, I mean, I don't think he's part of the top 51 contracts. I think he's on $1,000 this year. Nah. It's not going to really do much for the Buccaneers as far as trying to create cap space. Maybe pretty much. And it's more or less just a swip and swap type deal. So.
Yeah, so somebody said we're reading comments. Yeah, we are reading comments. I'm sorry we haven't necessarily been able to read all the comments tonight, but the comments, we had 90 people watching. They were coming fast and furious, so I was trying to read as many as possible. So definitely leave your comments, and I will answer you back or get on tomorrow night's show because, of course, the Sports Web can be seen here nightly on Bucs Report, bucsreport.com. Join our 61,000 following on Facebook. All right, let's see here. Johnny says best show ever. I love it, Johnny. That's the professor there. Do you all see the Bucs targeting anyone else to improve this defensive line if they free up the cap space? Anybody else out there? Muhammad Wilkerson, is that a guy that you could see them possibly getting? I know that they're cap strapped, and of course it depends on if they decide to make more cuts. Would you expect this team to make more cuts with William Golston and Ryan Smith or some other name out there that we haven't mentioned?
William Golston is cut as soon as a good veteran defensive lineman is available. He's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone. As soon as one of these other teams cut.
I'm not hearing you. Did you hear my question?
Yeah. Sorry, Blake. I don't know why your sound's freaking out, but Blake. Blake was saying that Golston is gone as soon as any veteran defensive lineman joins the team, and I think that's a good point with what Blake is saying. I think it's tough just because the way that, like I said, I mean, again, going back to the weakness being the defensive line, sure, you can go pick up a guy like Muhammad Wilkerson, but what's the cost? I mean, is he going to be that much better than William Golston? I mean, I really don't think so. I mean, maybe just because he knows the system, But yeah, he'll be cheaper. You know, that's an option for sure. But you know, there's not a lot of guys, especially at this time of the year. There's not a lot of guys rolling around out there that can, you know, show up and give you 8 sacks. So, you know, that's kind of the tough part. We'll see how it goes. What do you think, Phil? What do you think that they do signing wise? If there is any more signings, what do you think?
I mean, there's not a lot of people that have signed. I don't think you guys did.
Well,
I heard him.
I think he's
There we go.
lost of words.
I'm back. I'm back now.
At this point.
Yeah.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, I'm kind of agreeing with you, Mark. Like usual, man. I miss you, by the way. Anyways, Muhammad Wilkerson could be a guy that they signed. You know, you go back to somebody said it on Twitter earlier today when Bruce Arians was in Arizona, I think in 2012. They had a couple of guys that they signed in July, actually, almost the end of July, going into August, that really were contributors to what they did that season for that team. So maybe that's the splash that the Buccaneers are going to make here, you know, maybe in that June, July type frame. Get a guy who's, you know, a veteran, like you said, you know, guy's been in the league 5-6 years, who, you know, understands how defenses work and kind of can step in during preseason and get ready for the regular season. That's kind of what I'm seeing with the Buccaneers. I don't think they're going to do much more right now, heading into the end of OTAs and then into mini camp and then into training camp. I don't think there's going to be too much more. I think they're really going to focus on the UDFAs that they have, you know, the rookies and what they actually have on the field now. So I think Sue's going to be the last big splash thing that they do for a while.
All right, let's read some more comments here. I can't hear from Blake. I don't know if he's talking or not. So if I'm talking over you, I apologize, but I cannot see you or hear you right now. So let's see here. Light better get to 8-8 or he's done. Spinach is a omelet. In an omelet is a breakfast changer. Peter,
I saw that.
Try it. Not going to. Blake and Blake, the new Mike and Mike. Justin Evans is still the starting free safety. Agree with that?
I'm going with that.
Okay. All right.
Should be. Yeah. He should be.
Because I know they drafted, you know, they have Whitehead, they have Evans, but they also drafted the kid out of Kentucky, who they really like a lot. But there's going to be times where you're going to have 3 safeties on the field, right?
Yeah, that's the big one. And then they got that free agent as well, Kentrell Bryce from the Packers as well. Yep. So a lot of guys, I feel like they were trying to put bodies back in that safety group just because of the three safety set, like you said, Peter. But I don't think Edwards is quite ready yet, although he's a, you know, class act from everything. I don't think he's ready yet. I think Justin Evans needs to keep that job for sure.
A lot of those.
All right, guys, there you go. All right, the Real Sports Web. Keep it up, guys. Absolutely. Frankie says, awesome show. Appreciate it. Bucs should sign Simeon Rice. Very funny. But he did think he could come back a couple years ago. I'm not sure if he can still play. Somebody says you all need a sound engineer. Ian Beckles thinks this team is a 3-win team.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ian Beckles thinks a lot of things.
Yes. I don't agree with it. First, cuts may open up some potential players. The new Final 54 this year will be filled with a whole lot of new names. It's inevitable. New coaching staff. Will Ronald Jones make the team? Ronald Jones make this team?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I think so too.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Let's see. We hear Blake Anthony. Blake is present. We hear him. Where are you at, Blake?
I'm here, man. You don't want me to part of the party.
I think you're the only one that doesn't see or hear him, because I see and hear him, and I think Phil does too. So.
Yeah, he don't want me in there.
Headphones here. Let's see.
Rude.
All right, Blake, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
No. I can't hear Blake. So on that note, I do have a headset, but I can hear usually everybody here. So let's go ahead and wrap this up, guys. We got to do this again. This was a great experience. Thanks a lot for coming on. Yeah, absolutely. The Sports Web. For Philip Schwagler, Mark Magana, Blake Cabell. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. We'll see you later.